everyone. We're going to get started on our second session this afternoon. We do have a slight change to the schedule. Leslie Lewis is going to be speaking first. She was originally scheduled for this morning, but we're going to let her start this session, and then everything after will follow according to the schedule as it's laid out. It'll just be a few minutes later. So, Leslie Lewis is a compassionate and experienced trial attorney certified in health and environmental law. Ms. Lewis is a regular speaker on the issue of hydrofracturing and what citizens should know with respect to their legal rights, protections, and remedies. She has worked with residents from Dimock, Pennsylvania, and numerous other counties in Pennsylvania. Here in New York, she represents the landowners in the first lawsuit involving natural gas operations. She has also interned for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. with the Environmental Litigation Clinic and Riverkeeper. So please welcome Leslie Lewis as our first speaker this session.
Good afternoon. So I'm a lawyer, I'm a nurse, I'm a mother. I became involved in issues regarding hydrofracturing in early 2009. That was courtesy of a friend and activist, Michael LeBrun, who invited me to walk down the streets of Carter Road in Dimock with him to look at what was happening to the families and their properties and their state of mind subsequent to gas operations commencing in the Biddy, impoverished township of Dimock. What we found there was a community divided and a sum total of 63 potential plaintiffs who were ostracized, who were marginalized, who were pariah. They were people who had the audacity to complain about the fact that their water wasn't right anymore, that their water wasn't clean anymore, that something was wrong. And indeed, something was very wrong, and over many months, the aggrieved families attempted to work with the DEP, put their faith in the gas company, to do the right thing, to just correct their water problem, which they would not do. So a suit was brought in November of 2009 by me and a group of attorneys with whom I was at that time affiliated. I wrote what I believe to be the first lawsuit, federal lawsuit, filed in, at least in the eastern part of Pennsylvania on this issue. And litigation has continued. I won't speak in details, but to say that it's arduous, but not without satisfaction along the way. I have visited with people like the residents in Dimock in Wyoming. I have clients in Wyoming in Pavilion County and Clark County. Not counties, the area known as Clark and the area known as Pavilion, Wyoming. Devastated communities, all secondary to outrageously negligent gas operations. I have clients in Washington County, similarly situated. I have clients in Bradford County, similarly situated. And I have a client in New York State. What strikes me about what's going on with respect to the gas industry, due to my ability to get to know folks over, in various areas of the country where these operations are being conducted, is the commonality, the absolute identical conduct of the companies and our regulatory representatives. And it really, these commonalities are striking in the following ways. When folks are approached for leases, they are given exactly the same sales pitch, exactly the same lies, word for word. It comes out of a script, emits from the mouths of landmen. This is an opportunity of a lifetime. You're going to be rich beyond your wildest dreams. The company's going to be here for approximately 2 weeks. We have no idea whether there's really gas under your property. We just, want you to sign this just in case you'll ever see us again. You'll just know who we are. If there are operations on your property, clean, safe, efficient, regulated heavily, and if we ever do anything wrong, we're going to restore your property, your water, for example, to its previous condition. Now, for the Dimmick folks, they were given this series of lies, okay? They were ambushed at their dinner tables. They would have people in Cadillacs coming up into their driveway all hours of the day, forcing signatures, saying, you don't need a lawyer. Don't worry about this. It does need to be notarized. I'll take care of that. Okay? Terms are not explained, and the ramifications of engaging in a contract without representation, every syllable analyzed thoroughly by an attorney is potential future ruination for each and every one of you that might be approached by anyone. And believe me, they send out the nicest guys. They send out people, not only nice, they send out people on crutches. They send out mothers. They send out pastors. They send out anybody that they think will get them what they want at a discounted price. Now, that's one commonality. The leases, by and large, are the same. What varies is, from moment to moment, what they think you'll grab, what amount of money you'll sign for. And if it's $8 an acre, more power to them. If it's 25, which is what the Dimmick people got, that's great too. For others who are more savvy, who have consulted lawyers, they have reached far greater reward, potentially rewarding contracts. Another commonality, which is the most disturbing, and I don't know how many of you were here for Ms. Perry's, Dr. Perry's presentation with respect to her survey and data collection and reportage about the social impacts on communities. But here's the most disgusting aspect of what the industry's doing. It's dividing neighbors. It is, and I hate to say this because it's being thrown around a lot in the media today, but it is a type of engineered class warfare. Okay, and it has to be recognized that they are taking the more, I don't like the word impoverished, but the more needy, the less advantaged, and they are taking advantage of them. And those who are benefited are the people who have the acreage, who have the land, who have the financial resources to basically do one of the following things: put their home somewhere where the gas drilling isn't, okay, or see that the gas drilling isn't even anywhere in the visage of their beautiful area. Or number two, they have the assets, the resources, and the ongoing income through their underlying activities and their arrangements with the gas company to pick up and move, okay? And make no mistake about it, having been involved with Dimmick for 2 years, seeing what's going on in Bradford County, they don't care if you move. Their plan is for you to move. Their plan is for you to either take what they offer. If you have a complaint, live with it. If you can't live with it, okay, we'll give you an alternate water supply. We didn't do anything wrong, you understand. We didn't do anything wrong, but we're the good neighbors. Out of our largesse, we'll give you a water buffalo in your backyard, okay? And we'll vent your explosive well, okay? Their vision of America is the following. If there's a problem that arises, they fight it to the end. Then they'll give you a replacement water system. That system is acquired through silencing. Okay, and by silencing, I mean they are giving neighbors in Pennsylvania the ultimatum: sign this waiver of your rights to litigate, for example, and we'll give you water. And you may not talk about it. And that is a huge problem. A very, very big problem, because what's being reported, okay, as issues evolving as a result of the conduct of the industry is a fraction. Is, you know, an iceberg, all of it's below, you're seeing the tip of the iceberg. In any community, I mean, I've been in Bradford County a lot. I've been in the Dimmock area, in Susquehanna County a lot. For example, it's reported by the DEP through some of its consent orders involving Dimmock that there are, and I don't know, maybe some of you have read about it, there are only 18 affected households in the whole of Dimmock area. Not true. There are, you take a tour around Dimmock, you take a tour around Springford County, you take a tour around any community in Bradford County, there are water buffaloes everywhere. People have problems and they are not talking about them. So I'm giving you background. You're in a good place right now. You're in New York. You have, you know, activism is, local activism is pressing, forging the way toward potentially a very positive outcome for this state, but stay aware and stay vigilant and be community oriented. So that division of neighborhoods, that division of neighbors, people in these communities invariably, such as Dimmock, sort of my touchstone community, they're in their communities for nothing more than peace and quiet and to maintain their little estates. Nothing is sadder than to sit down with a family and they'll dust off their velvet, you know, photographic album that goes back to 150 years, that demonstrates, well, my grandmother lived here, my great-grandmother lived here, and my great-great-grandmother lived here. See this place, see that fireplace? My grandfather, brick by brick, put it in. These are people, the family I'm thinking of right now, for example, they're the, you know, proverbial, dramatic torch, you know, light your cigarette with your faucet, you know, they have explosive methane levels in their water. Their property is worthless. And I'll move into essentially, you know, and I never ever want anything to happen to you folks where you would need services of someone such as myself, but I'll tell you the types of issues that arise, okay? And basically, these are damages that accrue over every stage of development and drilling operations. And these include fraudulent advertising and activities, deceptive business practices, property damage, lease and royalty disputes, boundary disputes, trespass issues. And as a result of that, there are damages that occur, okay? And they occur in the form of air pollution, secondary to drilling, fracturing, production, venting, condensation, storage, pipeline placement, open line pits, natural gas flaring, okay? And as a result, you know, when I talk about air contamination, I'm talking about volatile organic compounds, nitrogen oxide, carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, benzene, formaldehyde, methane, radioactive materials. It's all happening. It's coming out into the air, and people are becoming, for example, most significantly in the Washington County and Greene County areas, in that area of western Pennsylvania, people are becoming very, very ill. Their livestock are dying. There are mutations, and I don't mean human, but you know, animal, livestock types of mutations that are developing now that we will find, and this is the hard part, which I'll get to, we will find is linked to these gas operations and air contamination in part. So a big issue that they have, for example, in Wyoming, and it's already starting to become more you know, spoken of in Bradford County, is the fact that there is local ozone accumulation that is no joke. In Wyoming, they call it ozone winter or something. You have this whole area of Pinedale that is under some kind of a warning, as if, and I don't know if anybody's from California, I happen to be born there, but you know, you think of Los Angeles, there's smog, there's ozone alerts. I am from New York City, and you know, we have our bad days as well, but I'm telling you that as a result of the combination of volatile organic compounds and something known as BTX and methane, coupled with nitrogen oxide, there is an emission into the air of a toxic substance that burns the lining of the lungs. So there's an air issue as secondary to operations. You know, the industry's funny. Well, they're not funny, they're very calculated. But what they like to do, and maybe some of you have read this, is to basically decry the following, or cry the following. There has never been a single case of water or air contamination secondary to fracking. Okay, that is a very isolated picture of what's going on. Keep in mind that every phase of production, every phase of development of the gas operations, risks to anyone in the vicinity, accidents and emissions that are potential sources of contamination to your air and water. All right, so another source of damages, logically, obviously, becoming, really highly prominently discussed, is the fact that we're experiencing water contamination like crazy, secondary to industry operations. And when I say that, I mean that there are explosive levels of methane in water. They're endemic. In January of 2009, one Norma Fiorentino, a lovely older lady, came back from I think it was a holiday party, to find that in her front yard, what had been her her water well with a cement slab this thick and who knows how large, had just blown up, blown into the air, pieces of concrete everywhere. All right, that's what happened in Dimmock. So there are reported incidences of homes exploding in Ohio. When we say explosive, we mean that you shouldn't even be in the residence. So there's virtually nothing known about 50% of the chemicals used in fracking. So we are aware that there are potentially 1,000 different toxins that are part of the fracking and drilling operations that are used. They're not disclosed fully, and those are finding their way as well into water sources. Potentially 70% of all fracking fluids remain in the earth. So there's a long-term risk of that produced water finding its way into drinking wells. We also know that water, this contaminated water, that which is retrieved from the earth after injection, is put into, is either mixed with soil or subject to evaporation or injected back into the earth. Again, it's really not being disposed of, and frankly cannot be disposed of in any type of healthy and safe manner. And what we do know is that humans are susceptible to illness due to exposure of a lot of these toxins and chemicals and contaminants that are introduced into the earth and are finding their way to water wells. That's another industry defense, is that the amount is just de minimis, minimal, nothing. It can't hurt you. And we do know, and again, this is the rub in litigation, is making that proving causation through science. But the science is evolving to demonstrate that that of the substances we know of that are being put into the earth that are finding their way into water, very small amounts are not consistent with human health. So. What are the legal claims potentially? What have been brought? So, in the lawsuits that I have filed, you sue for negligence. Basically they fall into property damage claims and personal injury claims. And the property damage claims are secondary to migration and trespass of the contaminants into air, soil, and water. You also have issues with respect to noise, odor, truck traffic, dangers there too, excess water withdrawal, erosion, sedimentation, and light pollution. Can I have a show of hands of how many people have actually ever seen a well pad or seen any operation? Those of you that have had the opportunity to be around it at night would recall that it is a surreal, unbelievably unpleasant experience of having, you know, lights shining into your children's windows, noise that's the equivalent of air jet engines, 24/7, as long as is necessary, with no recourse. So another legal claim is nuisance, as I said before, loss of use and enjoyment, devaluation of property. That's really becoming the number one issue, and issue in the sense that it really goes to the heart of being able to maintain an existence, to have a darn roof over your head. Okay? And if you can't, what happens is that if you're within a certain range of gas operations, you're going to have a very hard time selling your real estate for what its true value should be. Okay? And there are, basically banks and mortgage companies that will not give mortgages for properties that are too close to, within a certain number of feet away from gas operations. So they're seeing a lot of property devaluation claims. We have claims under local statutes or laws having to do with hazardous waste, water, and air. Now, something that's interesting that we did in DMIC that's, I think, if it goes well, it's going to be precedent-setting and will be helpful to everyone who faces a problem in the future and has to go up against a gas company. And that is that we sued under the theory of strict liability. Okay? And we are attempting to prove and demonstrate that gas operations are synonymous with ultra-hazardous operations such as dynamiting. Such that, and what that means in a legal sense is that when you bring such an action and it involves an ultra-hazardous operation such as gas drilling, the litigant, the plaintiff, does not have to prove that the gas company did anything wrong, because it isn't a matter of right or wrong. It's like, it's so bad that if you choose to make your living, your income, by doing that, you pay the price. So it streamlines litigation. It crosses a very big hurdle for a plaintiff, because proving the negligence can be difficult. So, and you go directly into what's called a damages trial. And it's just like proof of damages. Now, so far, the Middle District of Pennsylvania has held that the plaintiffs in DMIC have the right to continue to prosecute under that theory. We have already survived, the plaintiffs have already survived 2 motions to dismiss. And so that's good for everybody, and it should be watched closely. Additionally, we brought an action for fraudulent misrepresentation with respect to obtaining of leases. Okay, and that involves misrepresentations by the landman upon which the signatory relied, and that those lies evolved, as a result of those lies upon which they relied, they suffered damages, okay, or injury. Now, so most of the people that I work with and represent are attempting to get out of their leases and desire to get out of their leases. And this is one avenue that we're pursuing. And the lovely thing about that is that fraudulent misrepresentation also ensures an award of punitive damages. Now, that means you don't have to prove how you were injured by this fraudulent misrepresentation, but it is definitely not the kind of claim that industry ever wants to have standing on the record or ever having to pay, because that goes directly to the pocketbook in a way that they don't want to ever, they don't want that Pandora's box open. So another claim that we brought is for breach of contract, and I think it was, I have to say, kind of clever. And at the time that we brought this claim in 2009, there's been a little bit more disclosure with respect to what's in the frack fluids, okay? But in the leases, which are contracts that plaintiffs have signed, there's a provision that your water will be, if in the unlikely, impossible event, that the company, through its fantasticness, did do a little something to mess up your water, they will restore it to pre-drilling conditions, okay? Now, what does that require, Leslie thinks? What does that require? That requires a water test before industry. That requires a water test industry that tests for what you're putting in the ground to show that there wasn't anything in my water before you did your injection. That's what you need. That's a baseline. We heard Carol French talk about that before lunch. She said, get a baseline test. Okay, well, in these leases, the company guaranteed we're going to do it. They implicitly contracted to do that, because how can you reasonably assure that you will restore water to pre-drilling conditions unless you did a test before to show that the stuff that you put in the earth isn't in the water, and then you do a test afterwards for the same contaminants or toxins to see if they're there. Okay, so that's a novel theory of breach of contract, okay, which also was upheld by the Middle District. In other words, the plaintiffs have the right to pursue that claim. Ugly claim. They don't like that. So we have the fraudulent misrepresentation with respect to engagement and acquisition of leases, which carries punitive damages. We have the strict liability claim, which streamlines the opportunity for plaintiffs to see justice without having to go through the hoops of proving negligence. And we have the other interesting claim is under the local Clean Air and Clean Water Acts, there's provision for a plaintiff to sue, and if there's a violation and they are successful, they also get attorney's awards, which is something that industry also doesn't want. So with respect to what plaintiffs are looking to get out of the litigation that is occurring in different locations around the country right now, is basically for personal, recovery of personal injuries, the institution of a medical monitoring trust, a hunk of money being put aside to cover X number of people ad infinitum, because they've been exposed, they have a bona fide fear of cancer and other diseases, so they can be monitored and not at their expense. Also, they expect to receive awards for the emotional stress that's caused by this, what do you call it? Post-traumatic stress syndrome. When people say it's a warlike environment, it is. When I visit into these communities, I can't wait to get out. I can't wait to get away. I leave and I feel horrible, and I'm thirsty because I'm not going to drink a darn thing. Okay? And I leave and I go back to my little apartment in Manhattan, and I can turn on the darn tap. And it gives you a renewed appreciation for what used to be the little things in life, right? And it suddenly becomes more, the most important resource and precious resource that we have. So those are the types of claims that are brought. I'm going to wrap up because I've been squeezed in because I was late this morning because of my driver, but my friend Michael. But I will say, so what are the problems? What are the problems? Think about what you're up against with the industry. The first is they do not care. They really do not care. I don't know how many of you may or may not have followed what happened with the Dimmock pipeline. what we were able to acquire, and it was such a monumental moment, was the agreement by the DEP to place a water pipeline from a municipal water source 11 miles away to the affected Dimock residents at a cost to the gas company, which the gas company stood up and refused to pay. Therefore, the then Secretary of the DEP, John Hanger, said, "That's fine. Right, you know, we have money in the till from the state. Well, it's called from Penvest. Penvest voted on it. Yes, we'll fund the pipeline. The pipeline was approved. They were going to pay for it, and then they were going to litigate against Cabot to get the money back afterwards. Well, as a result of the enormous clout of the gas industry, and one company in particular, they were able to create a grassroots, that's film two. At any rate, they were able to create a grassroots organization to basically create this faux reaction, this false, disingenuous reaction against 14 families that would have been affected by this. No pipeline. They created a nice international symbol, you know, the red thing with the red thing through it. No pipeline. Up and down the certain road from Montrose to Dimock, every lawn. No pipeline. They went down to Harrisburg, acting like what's your problem? Why would they not want their neighbors to have fresh water? Okay? They were successful. It was approved in September, on September 30th. It was announced on September 30th, 2010. On December 15th, 2010, the secretary got on the phone with the Dimock plaintiffs, affected plaintiffs, said, you know, there's been a change in plans. I'm leaving office in a couple of weeks. We have a very unfriendly administration. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to pull the pipeline. Okay, you can audibly hear people all in this conference call crying. We're going to pull the pipeline, and in exchange, we're going to give you a monetary settlement based on the value of your home, and that's going to take care of your water forever. Now, there were people, and not only, now this call happened at 6 o'clock at night on December 15th. Prior to the affected persons and households ever knowing a thing about it, they thought Secretary Hanger was going to say goodbye, Merry Christmas, nice working for you, good luck with the pipeline. No. Before this conference with the Secretary, it was already on the gas company's website, Cabot settles with plaintiffs. Already on the website, the DEP had already leaked it to the news. The only people that didn't know about it were the affected persons and their attorneys. So that's an example of the clout, all right, of the scorched earth tactics that are taken, of the vision that they have that the smaller landowner, lessee, is irrelevant and a gnat. Okay, so if you don't have a lot of property, don't even consider getting involved. I mean, I'm not going to presume to tell people what to do, but I can say from my experience that if you have a small bit of property, you're going to be in very bad shape. You have no bargaining power. Nothing will mean that you mean nothing to them. They take scorched earth tactics in their litigation, so you have to be sure that when any issue comes up, you screen your attorney really well. You understand that they're talented and experienced in the environmental area, and that they have the resources to go against the gas company's phalanx of attorneys who make anywhere from $250 to $650 an hour. Let's see here. The way that they defend against these lawsuits historically and across the board is that the problems always pre-existed the drilling. For example, in Pennsylvania, there's always been methane. And that the bad water was there since the beginning of time, and they did not do anything wrong. And the difference there is that when you look at the science, the data, you see that when they say methane was pre-existing, it's all a matter of where the decimal point is. You might have had 0.00002 micrograms per liter of methane in your water pre-drilling, and afterwards you had 50. So I'll end now, because I know there's a lineup, and I appreciate your giving me the time to speak. But all of you, speak out. And I'm going to pick up on something that was said by an earlier speaker. Speak out, speak the truth, and don't be afraid to sue if you need to. Okay? If they're not working for you, you fight the good fight. You believe in your government, you believe in your regulatory representatives, you believe that people that are executives in company somewhere and they have families too, and that they care. Work with them. Be a sticky wicket, a greasy, an ungreased wheel. But if it doesn't work, don't be afraid to come out of the woods, and do not ever sign anything. A waiver, a lease, an agreement, anything that without checking, with a bona fide, credentialed attorney. And that issue of getting baseline tests, if you have the wherewithal, the resources to, at this moment, at this time, check your air, check your water quality. And again, we had Carol Knapp, who had a booklet. She's a great resource for who can do that, and the extent of the testing necessary. Just be forearmed. Thank you very much.